You should know this. If your monies are established by a tax base funded by an electorate, research with unknown returns on investments in fields not yet fully understood by the public. This is really hard to get money for. But you know what it's not hard to get money for? I'll tell you. Here it is. I was invited to write a chapter for the Columbia History of the 20th Century on exploration. And I hemmed and hawed, and I finally agreed. I was going to make a grid of all the most expensive things civilization has engaged in, and look at how much it cost and what they did to get the thing paid for. And I thought to myself, if we're going to send people to Mars, I find that on the grid and find out what motivated the people to pay that. And then we could learn from the history of civilization. And when I did this exercise, I arrived at only 3 drivers that enabled a nation to commit large sums of money. One is obvious: war. People will spend almost any amount of money to not die. And so what kind of projects come under war and defense? The Apollo program, initiated out of fear of the Russians. The Manhattan Project, huge diversion of funds in the middle of the Second World War by the United States with an international team of scientists. The Great Wall of China, a huge undertaking. The interstate system in the United States, it's just roads, of course. However, the interstate system, roads built to a specification, established by Eisenhower after he saw the Autobahn in Germany in the Second World War. The Autobahn did not wash out in the rain. It supported troop movements and tanks. And he said, I want one of those. In came the interstate system, $100 billion. In fact, the interstate system cost the same as the Apollo program, motivated by not wanting to die, moving material and personnel around. What's number 2? This is not as common today. Used to be common: praise of deity or royalty. From that, you get the pyramids, and you get Versailles, you get like cathedral building in Europe as an activity. Huge investments in financial and physical capital. Today, royalty is not as powerful over nations as it was 300, 400, 500 years ago. So you don't see this today so much. The third, and another obvious one, but it's a total of 3, promise of economic return. There you get Columbus and Magellan and Lewis and Clark. There's no end of this list. So what this comes down to is, I don't want to die, and I don't want to die poor. That will invest in practically anything. Notice on this list is not, let's explore, let's do this for science, let's do this because it's in our DNA. You could make that argument, and you could fund below a certain radar level a project, depending on the wealth of your nation. $1 billion here, $1 billion there, depending on the wealth of your nation. You could do projects where this is not relevant. But once the price starts getting higher, you're up against people's personal rejection of what might look like the activity of others for their own gain, whereas everybody benefits if the nation sees an economic return or if you don't die. So these 3 forces, war, royalty, economics, are powerful. So I've used this to judge whether anything will ever happen. Are we going to put humans on Mars? Only if somebody judges that you have to do it, otherwise you would die. Kings are not going to do it anymore, or somebody's going to make a buck. That's my cynicism that I'm bringing to this conference, based on the history of human conduct.